let's dive into C4R itself. So let's assume we have a 360 team up and running. We've created a project members have been allocated. So now what? So let's assume that I have collaboration for Revit entitlement, which basically means that I have a couple of buttons extra, that there's this collaborate using a 360 option in here, and that I can actually look at projects in the cloud to upload my Revit file to. So what happens is that I start from scratch with an empty template, which you see here. I hit that button collaborate, and I get this dialog box which is asking me, do you want to collaborate in the traditional way with a central P drive or central M drive or whatever, or Revit server, or do you want to go on to that third installment, which is truly collaboration through the cloud, so collaborate using A360. So we're obviously going to select this one, which means that in a second we're going to be activating worksets automatically. But the first thing I need to do here is specify, well, my file here, master design, I'm going to upload that to a specific project that I've been invited to, which is that sales roadshow. Okay. So then starts work sharing. So you'll see that now work sharing is activated. We're uploading to A360 and we're saving the model to local cache. Now for the demo, which is going to kick in a second, is I'm actually going to be impersonating two users. One is myself, Eve, which is my laptop machine itself, and I've got a VMware running, as you can see here, VMware, which is going to be Paula White's environment. So I've just created an empty file. I'm working on the walls workset as user Eve's, and Paula is going to go onto the cloud, so that's also a new button now. So she's going to open up from the cloud into Sales Roadshow that same project file, that same Revit file, opening it up, and that's where we're going to kick in with the demo. So what you'll see here is that same environment. So I've got my master design.rvt, Eve's here, and I've got workset walls, which is active. Okay, and as you can see, there's the second person, Paula White, who has doors active. So if I go onto my VMware, then you'll see that we have Paula White here within Revit, and there's that workset doors. Okay, there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start designing. You'll also notice that we already have communicator in place here for Paula, and I've also got it in place within my design as being Eve's. And you see immediately that these persons are active, and Greg, that third person, is not active right now. Okay, so I'm on wall, so let's actually design two walls in here. There we go. And the first thing I'm going to do is obviously I'm going to use that same, as I said before, it's the same workflow that you've seen before. So if you're using worksets on a central file on a P drive or Revit server, we're doing the exact same thing. We're going to synchronize with central. This is going to be on A360, that Sales Roadshow project, and we're uploading. Okay. And what you'll see is that this icon becomes active, which means that we are syncing now. So if I go to the other location, to Paula White's environment, so I'm now inside of that VMware, which you see here, it just showed that indeed there was syncing happening, synchronized with Central Complete by myself. So I can now go in and say collaborate, reload latest. So I'm now asking for those changes from Eve's and downloading them into my local working copy, if you will. So you'll see in a second that those walls kick in and that I can start designing as being Paula White. And there we go. Okay, so that's done. So me as being Paula, I do want to add a door on my door workset. Now remember, Eve is in charge of all those walls. So if I want to put in a door here, then obviously that's not going to work directly because I haven't gotten this wall on my workset. So what's going to happen is that I'm going to get a warning from Revit saying, look, this is an issue. So you really need to ask Eves to get that wall. So okay, I'm going to place that request. Has been placed. Okay. So what you'll see now is that I get this editing request from Paula asking me for that wall, obviously. So I'm going to grant that wall to her. And you'll see that we now have indeed the fact that that wall is now on my work list. So I can just go in and put that door in. Okay. Now let's go back to Eves here for a second. So I've put that door in. So being Eves, I'm pretty sure that Paula is going to do something to my design. So I'm going to activate, and this is not new. I mean, this was in Revit for the last 3 releases. I'm just showing you that the same workflow that you've been used to can be applied here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at model updates, which means that if changes are occurring on the central file on A360 team, I want to get notified, if you will. And I'm going to be notified by having an update being highlighted in purple. So that's what's going to happen here in a second. So I'm just going to do it like that. So going back to Paula here, so I'm going back to Paula. If I say, right, I'm going to upload my changes. So I've just put in that door. Well, first of all, I got the acknowledgement, if you will, from Eves to use that wall. I put the door in. I'm going to upload my changes to the central file, which again sits on A360. And I'm going to relinquish my borrowed element, which is that wall. Okay. So what you'll see is that in a second, this is going to kick in again, that animation, if you will, on the upload to the central file. Okay. So that's now uploading. And let's have a look here. So syncing now, Paula White. So once this is done, you're going to see that something is changing within this environment. Okay. Meaning that my local wall, that's what you see now, it's turned purple. My local wall is different from what's on the central file. So I can just do a reload latest. That door is going to come in. I've seen it through the communicator, which you've just seen here. I've seen it graphically within Revit. So that's the sort of follow-up that we have, the sort of communication that we can have between different users in different locations, no matter where they are. Okay. Now, what has happened on that environment within the cloud? Because we're uploading to the cloud the whole time, which means that I could indeed have a look at what is happening here. And what you'll see is that there is indeed this master design. And as a independent user, if you will, not one on collaboration for Revit, just a project contributor within A360 team, you can see that actually I'm not seeing those latest changes. This is, if we look at versions, this was uploaded 5 hours ago. And that's quite nice because it means that from a designer's point of view, these guys can actually discuss between themselves. And remember, we have communicator to actually send an email to Paula or to the whole project team or whatever. And we can say, look, are we happy with the changes that we've done? Is this something that we can, for instance, communicate to the building owner, to the project owner? If that's the case, then I can go into Manage A360 models and I can say, right, this latest version, which is only accessible to the Revit designers themselves, well, I'm actually going to upload this to the cloud as a published version. So you'll see that what happens here is that those latest changes, I'm now opening them up to the bigger design team. So again, future of making things, one of those pillars being the end users that are adamant as to understanding what is happening to their design. Well, I want to make sure that those changes that we've done, they can see them immediately on A360 team the second that we approve our changes, if you will. So this is now uploading, and you'll see in a second that if we go back to my project here, then you'll see that it already says now preparing for viewing, and we do have two versions now. There's a latest version a few seconds ago, and within a couple of seconds you'll see that we do have a view available. So let's just do that again. There we are. So that has now been produced through the large model viewer. So I can just basically click on one of those elements and look at all of the information. I can do that within the web interface, but as I mentioned, we can do that pretty much anywhere as long as we have a connection. So let's say that we are on site. We do have a connection to the web, and I want to make sure that we visualize this information on an iPad. So here's my sales roadshow. I'm, by the way, that Greg Rodriguez guy that you can see here. Okay, so I want to go on to that sales roadshow, click on my master design, which is now that latest version that all of those designers have approved, and we can actually look at that information, and we've got the same sort of interface. We can look at properties, we can mark up, we can send those markups back to the design team, and basically what you have here is a more direct communication between the different stakeholders, the designers, but also the building owner, who can immediately see what is happening to his design, if you will. Okay, he can put markups on and feed those back to the different designers. So let's just switch that off. Okay. So that's sort of the workflow that we can have. So very important from a workflow point of view. Nothing much has changed as to how people have been using work sharing in the past. The only difference is the file or the project sits on the cloud and is therefore open for consumption to users downstream in the project or to other services in the cloud, etc., etc.